Welcome, friends, to another episode of the Pick Six podcast. I am your host, DPZ, with my buddy over here, Drake, at Drakes_PC. Drake, how you doing, bro? Another episode, another day. We took a week off. Here we are.
DPZ, back from vacation. I've got the bronze glow going on. We got rid of the sunburn. It's been a good week in Florida with the family. We avoided sharks, so that was good. So that was definitely a good thing. It's been interesting hearing the backlash over that, as far as people are freaking out about sharks in the ocean and things like that. And there's fish in a lake, there's sand on the beach, and there's clouds in the sky. Right? It's just these things exist, and like with anything, you've just got to know what to look for and protect yourself. And but yeah, it's interesting as you look through folks swimming in the ocean, and there's all these sharks that just swim by, and 99.9% of them want nothing to do with you. And so, yeah, it's just interesting, the fear thing that comes out of it, and I was thinking about as a kid going to the beach, and, you get out and you swim to the sandbar, and you're picking up sand dollars, and you're doing this, that, and the other, and you don't really think a whole lot about, getting attacked by a shark or something like that. But as a parent now, and you grow up a little bit, and the fear sets in. You don't feel as invincible and things like that. You start to think about your kids, and we were certainly definitely more cautious, but it wasn't a whole thing where we were just going to avoid it just because something happened 10 miles down the beach. So, and we actually did see a hammerhead shark while we were there. So, but the lifeguard assured us that hammerhead sharks don't mess with humans. So, I'll trust his instinct.
I don't know if I trust that instinct. I just don't think I'd be in the water with a shark, but that's just me. So, what kind of mail day, anything like that you want to show off? I don't have anything this week. Curious if you do.
Yeah, man, I do. I actually got back and I had this in the mail. Been looking for this card for a couple of years, and so I can get it right. This is the Drew Brees 2016 Optic Gold, number 6 out of 10, and a BGS 9.5. This was a card I'd actually been after for a couple years now. There was a BGS 9 that auctioned a couple years ago, and I was the underbidder on it. And I thought, okay, well, it's a Optic Gold, it's Breeze, it's out of 10. I'm sure I'll find another at some point soon. And then this was the first copy that popped up, and I saw it on eBay, and I reached out to the seller, and we connected on Instagram, and we're able to make the deal off of eBay, which is always nice, and was able to add a new connection to my circle in the hobby community, which I think was great. And he helped me get a card that I was looking for. And as a lot of people know, 2016 was the first year of the Optic brand. And I found the rest of the years of Breeze and Optic and Golds, like I found those fairly easily. Those pop up from time to time, but really 2016, for whatever reason, I mean, if you go out, and I'm not looking right now, but if you do a search for like 2016 Optic Gold football on eBay, there's just not a lot out there. And you can look for other years of Optic Golds, and I think they're more prevalent. But I know for bigger names like Tom Brady and stuff, his Optic Gold is a ghost card that you just don't see. So, we've talked before about cool cards and important cards and significance and things like that. I think this is one where Optic is a name brand in the hobby. Obviously, people like Golds. We can spend a whole episode talking about, is that a pump? Is that a flipper mentality or something like that? But I think the Golds look great, especially with the Saints colors, the black and gold and that sort of thing. So was very excited that this popped up, and excited to add this into my Drew Brees personal collection.
Very, very cool. Well, that's fun. Thanks for sharing that with us, Drake, with everyone. What do we got for questions? Do we want to talk about today?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to talk about is we've probably seen on eBay, right? I think working with PC Sports Cards, they're going to do an Autopay auction coming up. I believe it's the first week of July. Basically, you send in your cards that are valued anywhere from $300 to $1,000. It goes through the auction, and basically once the auction ends, from my understanding, when you bid on the card and that sort of thing, you have to put in your payment information. And once it ends, then it's going to force you to pay for the card. So, it's designed to eliminate, shill bidding, having to relist, things going unpaid. If you're a consigner, one of the most frustrating things is you send in cards to sell because maybe you need money for a card you're trying to consolidate into, and you're expecting them to sell for around a certain amount. And the next thing you know, you get a note from your consigner and says, hey, this isn't, this card wasn't paid for. It's got to be relisted, or it was shilled, or whatever the case may be. And then you're having to go through that process again. And certainly 9 times out of 10, and maybe 10 times out of 10, the second time that card is listed, in a short period of time, it typically goes for quite a bit less than what it's sold for. So it can definitely be a big hassle, can cause you stress and things like that. So I certainly think it's a step in the right direction, but I think there could be some cons in the hobby that we see. So I think we can probably talk through some of those, but what do you think?
I think it's I'm with you, a step in the right direction. And I think on eBay, when you make offers, sometimes you have to enter your payment information so that if you win the offer or it's accepted, then you're paying right away. I don't have a problem with that because you're committing to that, and it's committing to the seller. You're not changing your mind. I feel like if I have to change my mind, then I'll have to sell the card, which I've done a lot, but that's how you do it. I feel like, in the beginning, I didn't really understand that very well. Like my first 2 months of buying cards, I want to refund or back out of something. I'm like, because I found the better version, or I learned something about the cards, and kind of found out really quickly from a LCS owner friend of mine that, you can't do that, man. It's bad news. I'm like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, you develop a reputation in the hobby if you did that. So after like a couple times of doing that, literally it was just a couple times asking for a refund right away, because I was like, oh gosh, I probably shouldn't have bought this. And the seller was just really upset. Of course, they'd probably been dealing with people like me a lot. And so that was very annoying. And I totally get it now, after having sold cards on eBay for a while. It's annoying. So you learn that quick. But I think this is a great way to kind of eliminate that issue. The card's bought. Of course, someone can always ask for a refund, but a lot of times you don't have to do it. I think there's a lot of things in place now. So at least it eliminates the accepting it and then just not paying for it, right? So that's a step in the right direction. I was reading on a story from our buddy Nick from Wharf Sports Cards that the shill bidding aspect of this, if detouring shill bidding, could affect the values of a lot of these cards that are actually propped up, and defensive bidding being done by owners of the card. Talked about this with Jeremy Lee once on one of those taking stock episodes. It was a hotly contested topic. I don't believe in shill bidding. Obviously, I think a lot of people don't, but some people kind of go into this gray area of like, well, you're just defensively bidding, and if I bid it up, I'll buy it. If I win it, I'll buy it. I'm going to follow through and buy it. I'll buy a second copy, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but I don't think most people are doing that. I think people, if they're doing it, they're hoping to just drive up the price and then not have to buy the price, but you're making someone else have to pay more for it. I think a lot of us probably fell victim to that, whether we knew it or not. Sometimes we knew it. So I think getting rid of that behavior or deterring that behavior is a good thing for the hobby. And his point was, well, your values are going to go down, a good amount for a while. And are we going to be okay with that correction in value? It might take some time for it to level out, or maybe we'll never come back. Are cards truly worth? Well, I guess I kind of like to know what these cards are truly worth then. I mean, there's a part of me that wants to rip the Band-Aid off. Let's go. If a card's not truly worth what I think it is that I own, well, I'd like to know that. Because I don't think everybody should be paying too much for a card that's not truly worth what it's worth. And maybe that's a big old can of worms we just opened there, but I do feel like that's okay. So that part of it, the payment, making sure we're not having any lost time for getting payments, I think is important. So from my perspective, I like it. I do feel like it's kind of a pain in the butt these days trying to sell if it's going to be less than like $200, I feel like I'm just not even going to send it in. I mean, it's just not worth it. I was doing that for a while, but it's just, you just don't get enough, and the hassle of waiting and all that. I might as well just keep the card, or, just keep it. It kind of encourages me to keep some of those cards that I've graded and maybe didn't get the grade I wanted. I'm like, I'll just keep it, or I'll give it to my son or something like that. So I wonder too about the volume of sales moving forward. As stuff keeps calming more down in our hobby space, at least from what I can tell, from what I can see, which is, I know, just about 2 or 3% of our hobby, which most of it's offline. It just seems like it's more relaxed. Yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I was thinking, with this beta test that they're doing with PC sports cards and eBay, the dollar value is $300 to $1,000, and I wonder, is there like that seems reasonable. I'll say for people like, okay, it's still a lot of money, right? Once you start
Absolutely.
getting into it, yeah, still a lot of money for 99% of the hobby. So I don't want to discount that, but I just wonder about there's a difference in getting auto charged on your credit card, let's say for $300 versus $30,000, right?
Yeah.
And I think when you get into some of these premier type auctions and the higher end markets and things like that, if you're forced to pay immediately and you're not given some grace like you do with, say, someone like a PWCC, where you've got 2 weeks to pay after the auction ends, and you have a chance to sell things on your own, send things in for consignment, take in advance, that whole sort of thing. And so I really wonder what that does on the higher end of the market, if we see a greater correction there than we do on the lower end of the market, because people, assuming that they do end up going to a higher level than just $1,000. Just thinking ahead, I wonder what that looks like for the higher end piece of the market.
Yeah, I mean, you almost want to dovetail into another conversation. It's something that I've been feeling lately as someone who's spent, whether it's capital from cards to buy them, but have some, mostly some bigger cards in my PC right now. I don't have as many, but I have, a smaller amount of quality cards. But a lot of these cards, I couldn't imagine ever spending the money like, oh, I got a bonus, I have some extra money. We have 4 kids. You just don't do that, right? That's just not going to happen. You're going to go, well, it's going to go 17 other places before it even remotely is thought about used on cards. But I just, even over $1,000, it's tough for me to think about. Why would I don't know if I'd want it. My appetite for doing that is just, it's by the day that goes by is becoming more, less and less and less and less. I'm actually having more fun grading cards that my son wants to grade. I mean, yeah, the grading costs are kind of ridiculous. Even the grading costs just kind of bite me. I'm like, do I want to spend $150 grading these cards? Like, I'm there. And it's not that I'm saying I've never been there before. I feel like I went up here. Now I'm kind of back where I started. Like, that's a lot. $200 for that card. I don't know if I want that card that bad. North of $1,000. It's almost like, I see some of these prices. And I'm like, I couldn't do it. Like, sell a card to buy it, maybe, I guess. But even then, I'm like, I don't know if I want to sell any. I mean, if I want to sell any more cards, and you think about the tax implications. Now I got to, I'm going to have all this stuff in the taxes now. How's that going to affect everything, the buying, the selling, and all that stuff. And so I had less of an appetite for the bigger cards. So I'm just talking about me. I just wonder if there's a lot of folks like me that kind of dipped in their toe into that water. That's like, I don't know if I'm going to do that anymore or ever again. It's going to have to be consolidation kind of thing, as always. But even so, I don't even know if I want to go through that. And I could never imagine spending that kind of money. Just if I got the extra cash, I feel like it's going to go so many other places. Am I the only one feeling that way, that has spent more than $1,000 on a card before? I wonder.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about. I mean, obviously credit exists for a reason and things like that. We certainly discourage, filling up a bunch of credit for cards. I've done it before. I'm not going to sit here and act holier than thou and say that I've never done that. Yeah. But at the same time, too, that one of the things I struggle with as a collector, and I see people doing it now ahead of the National, is they're selling a bunch of cards to free up cash for what may be out there. And I have trouble doing that for selling a whole bunch of stuff for just a what if type scenario. And I'm the type of collector where when I buy a card, I buy it for my collection and I want to keep it in my collection. Then if, card A comes along and I'm like, hey, I want this card more than what I, currently have. Then as our good friend Brett Stacking Slab says, I take my PC to court and I say, okay, what do I have in my collection that I can move that will then allow me to fund this card? And I think sometimes if you've got an auto pay type situation, for something higher value, unless you're putting on a credit card and you can pay it off very quickly or something like that, it really doesn't allow you to do that in much the same way that you do today. It kind of forces you to say, hey, if I'm buying this card, I need to have the cash on hand as soon as the auction ends so that I can pay for this card. And that's definitely the way, we should approach all of our hobby lives and not, start start taking out a bunch of debt or credit or things like that to fund the hobby. We need to use our card equity, but it's tough for me to just, start selling things for a what if type scenario.
I mean, my view might be tainted a bit because I work in finance, and I'm part of a lot of economists' presentations. I'm hearing about this stuff a lot and looking where, the dot plot map and where we're going and what the Fed thought where we would be, and I don't see interest rates dipping too far down. If we might not even move, maybe two adjustments that might move us down maybe a point, and that's not going to bring us anywhere near where it used to be. I think that we're going to either settle into being comfortable with inflation above 2% and a certain interest rate and a 10-year bond and the inverted, because we're in the banking, we're in the inverted yield curve for over 24 months now, which is a big deal. But I think, so I don't know if there's a recession is actually coming. I think that little economy 101 here going on, but I think that my mentality when I hear that, I keep okay, money is costing more to borrow. It's costing more. Money, cash is actually becoming way more sought after. There's more people on the sidelines not spending it, and they're definitely not spending it on collectibles as much. You're probably not going to see folks taking those risks right now. So maybe that's tainting my thoughts. This is the high end stuff, right, too. But this is also the common, us common guys that are out there collecting. Like, I don't know if I want to borrow any money to buy a card. I personally don't want to have anything on debt. But even using cash, like I said before, I think it's becoming more important to have that versus having the card. So I do think that's going to affect your values on a lot of cards. Not the big ones, right? The big ones are there. They're going to keep growing. There's a reason they're there, but we're talking about the 99% of every other card that we all probably have or collect. And you talk about taking your PC to courts, as we're talking about that again, and consolidation efforts. I'm to the point now where I look at my PC, and outside of like a couple cards that I know there's multiples of, I can go get another one if I really needed to get it again. I only have about 2 or 3 cards like that where I could sell out of my like 12. And the rest of them, if I sell it, I probably will never see it again, ever. Or it's going to cost an arm and a leg to get it. And I just, like, by just what I spoke about, I'm not going to be ever comfortable doing that. So I'm like, either I keep it, and I've worked kind of consolidated into that over the last 5 years. This is 5 years work all kind of wrapped into these 10 cards, 12 cards. Or I sell it and I'm done. I'm not going to see it again. Get a lower grade copy, maybe just be settled for that or something. But you get to that point, then you're just like, okay, now what am I aiming at? What am I looking for? What cards am I looking at? So yeah, I think there might be some of that fatigue and that mentality in the hobby space too, looking at coming back. I mean, we're talking about this eBay instant pay feature, but that appetite for spending that kind of money, whether it's an instant pay or whether it's put on our credit card now, paid off later, consolidate, I don't know. Yep. I could be wrong, but the sense I get and what I see from in the investment community and a lot of professionals in finance, it's like everybody's kind of holding back a little bit, right? So.
Yep. So for the viewers and listeners, what do you think? Is this a good thing, bad thing for the hobby? This is a good thing, bad thing for folks on a personal finance standpoint. I think we both think it's a good thing from a personal finance standpoint, but
yeah,
we're not naive enough to say we don't care about the values of our collections, right? Everybody wants the value to maintain, to go up, things like that. So just something to think about. But yeah, drop your thoughts in the comments, and we'll certainly talk about it as a follow-up next week. But moving on to the next topic, and this was actually on a story I saw today. As most of you know, the PWCC Premier Auction ended this past Thursday. And friend of the show at Deep Value Investor Brent on Instagram had some stories, and we've talked about in here DPZ about BGS to PSA and things like that. And I thought he had some interesting story post around a Jason Tatum 2017 National Treasures rookie patch auto. So I'll share quickly for folks that maybe didn't see it, kind of the analysis of sales price. So on this past Thursday, PWCC Premier, there was a 2017 Jason Tatum National Treasures rookie patch auto out of 99 PSA 1010 with a napkin patch. And for those who don't know what a napkin patch is, it's just a solid white one color patch. That sold for $43,200. A similar card also out of 99, but it was a BGS 9.5 with a 10 auto. sold for $16,500. So it was cut in over half. What is that? About 60% of the value, or yeah, about 40% of the value of the 9.5 to the 1010. And this copy out of 999 had a 2-color patch with a little green and a white. And we'll move over a little bit. Something a little bit differently is that same card, the PSA 1010 with the napkin patch out of 99, again sold for $43,000 about. But then a first off the line RPA of Jason Tatum out of 15 that was a BGS 9.5 with a 10 auto sold for $25,800. So in both cases, you have cards, one with a better looking patch, one with a better, and then the second one with a better looking patch, and it's out of 15 versus out of 99, both selling for significantly less than the PSA 1010 copy with a napkin patch. So do you think that the PSA 1010 or PSA 10 or just PSA slabs in general are way overvalued both in the short term and in the long term? Or is there something to be said, as Brent says, that there may be a lot of value currently buying BGS slabs or nicer cards?
Well, let me ask you this, Drake. If you had your choice, would you have Fruit Loops, Kellogg's Fruit Loops, or General Foods Fruity-O's? Which tastes better?
The Fruit Loops, absolutely.
Okay. That's the power of brand. And in that case, it's actually a better product. With grading, it's interesting because grading technically is everybody's. There's an opinion. It's an opinion of a card and its condition. And that's the only thing that's differentiating the price, right? So when we both talked about that you just mentioned your analogy, okay, Fruit Loops over Fruity-O's. Okay, you're going to maybe, and if I'm saying Fruity-O's wrong, maybe it's another name, just correct me in the comments. But, go follow my logic here. So there's not just a brand difference. There's a quality difference, right? It's better. I think we've all had it. Our kids have had it. Like, it's not as good. Then you go to the card. They're the same card, right? There's napkin patches. Maybe the patch is even better. That's a brand. That is the brand hurting the card, right? And so if you're going to buy stock, I'll keep going. I know I'm in a finance mood. I just got done with a major economic forum yesterday. If you are buying a stock, are you going to buy stock in PSA, or are you going to buy stock in BGS, right? So my thought is I'm going to buy stock in PSA. But the funny thing is you can just buy that card for less money, crack it out of this BGS holder, and submit it to a PSA, get a somewhat of a, maybe there's a variance in grade by 1 or 2 points, but still, you're going to still get into the brand. You're going to get the Fruit Loops. You're going to get the better stock. You're going to get into a better brand that's stronger, that should last, to be, have that long-term value. But then buy it at half the price. So this is the only place where I feel like you can do that and get away with it. And we all kind of just know these pop reports are all kind of funky because everybody's I'm doing it myself. We're cracking them out and we're submitting them and to get a PSA grade, especially if it's a card that just the grade's important, but it's not vital. You're just getting it less. So, because, I can sell it for less with a, and I think some of those cards that are really high value and important cards, or cards that are really sought after and in demand, that are scarce, the BGS versus PSA is a little more evened, but you said the first off the line, so that kind of throws out a wrench into that argument too, right? So I don't know, man. It seems to me that PSA is the only thing you want to. It's the only holder you want to have your cards in, like at the end of the day. Yeah. But as far as purchasing and picking up some of these cards, if you can get one at a discount like that, why not? As long as the card is not completely different. If it's a superior looking patch, when you talk about patches, then go buy the BGS card and then crack it out and put it in a PSA slab. You get the nice new hard slab now or whatever it is. And so, it seems like a pretty sweet deal if you think about it. That's a big price difference. I also feel like you're buying right after a championship. Man, where's the growth for that card? Where's the opportunity for growth at $40,000 for that card? You wonder about that, right? At a 1010, is it going to go, the real nice patches are the ones people want. The collectors want the nice patches, like tricolor patches and stuff like that. But yeah, that's my thought on it.
Yeah. Well, and just a quick aside, and I don't have Card Ladder in front of me, but I do know that Jason Tatum, his card values have decreased by a certain percentage even through the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was, and others have talked about this. It was expected the Celtics would win. People knew, Jason Tatum, like many others, we'll even say Luka. A lot of those guys have either one championship or multiple championships priced into their cards right now. And so, if you expected a spike, you're not going to see it. And the other thing too is there was very little drama in the playoffs. Most of them the series were very one-sided and things like that. And so I think it's, you see somebody that comes out of nowhere and does something that wasn't expected. And I think that's when you see, at least on this kind of, ultra modern prospect type thing, that's when you see the values increase during a playoff series or a championship series or something like that. And I think this year we didn't really see that because everything that people expected to happen is exactly what happened. And so anyway, so just a quick aside, but I think you hit the nail on the head with the cards. It's very cliche in the hobby, but it's buy the card and not the grade or the slab or something like that. And I think in this case, right, you buy the better looking card or even lower numbered card in the BGS slab. And if slab's important to you, then you crack it out. You've already saved, let's say, $15,000 to $20,000 by buying it in a BGS slab. You spend the $100 or whatever it costs, the $300. I'm not sure the pricing for that value right now. You send that in and you get it in the PSA slab, and maybe you also get a PSA 1010 or a 910 or something, and then that gives you extra value. But I think with right now, PSA slabs are just so easy, especially for flippers to be able to move and sell and things like that. And BGS, with being that lesser brand, is seen as less than. And so people are, there's so much emphasis it's put on the slab today, and it's something that I'll say I struggle with as a collector, right? I showed the Breeze, card in the BGS 9.5. Would I rather that be in a PSA slab? Yeah, but it didn't prevent me from buying that card because I want that card, and maybe someday I'll crack it out or whatever and throw it in a PSA slab just for consistency. But it's not one I'm looking to sell, so it's not one that I'm in a huge rush to like to spend the money to do that with. So. But it's certainly interesting. I think there's, as Brent says, I think there is value opportunities to buy that stuff because of the type of slab that it's in. So certainly if you're looking for that type of thing or looking to add, cool cards to your portfolio, we'll certainly encourage you to look for opportunities there, because I do think, there's certain opportunities in the hobby where you could get a great card at a discount just because it's in, not the coveted PSA slab.
Well, I also think that you got to remember too, you're not always going to get a Gem Mint 10 Auto 10 PSA card out of any BGS you buy, even if it's a 9.5 with good subgrades. Sometimes I've cracked handfuls of those and sent them in, and I didn't get 10s. Sometimes I got 9s. Sometimes I got 10s. So it's less of the more times than not, you're probably going to get a lesser grade. So sometimes somebody who just has the money goes, I don't want to deal with any of that garbage. They don't want to listen to all this and us talk about all this stuff. They don't want to have to go through the waiting game and all the other things, spend the money to send it in and hope it gets the right grade and the whole thing. They're like, I just want the card in that holder. I know it's guaranteed at that, and the card in there is guaranteed. That's a big deal. BGS, we don't even know how long they're going to be around, much less a guarantee on authenticity. There's been authenticity issues with some cards, like that one card that was colored in. Remember? I mean, the PMG red Michael Jordan. I mean, there's this weird stuff going on with Beckett where it's like, I don't know. I feel like PSA is just doing everything to get better and improving and progressing and scaling, and BGS is just doing nothing. And so you're going to buy the brand. So people are buying the slab, but they're not just buying the slab for the value sake. They're buying it for the brand, the fact that they feel like it's going to be around a long time. And if they hand that card down to their children or whatever, that card's going to be guaranteed. There's going to be all that attached to it. At least that's what I think. I feel much more confident with it being in those slabs because you feel secure. There's all the nefarious activities and behaviors we have in our hobby space. That's one of those things you can kind of lean on. So yeah, there could be value opportunities there to buy a card, but you're not going to get the grade I think that you want. Yep. And I think that'll be something the gap will keep widening. It'll be less cards crossing over from a 10 to a 10 or a 9.5 to a 10. In my opinion.
Yep, agreed. Yeah, so drop your thoughts in the comments. If you're, so DPZ and I have said that we don't actively send our cards in to be graded with Beckett. If you do, please drop a comment, and we'd love to hear about your motivation to grade with Beckett versus PSA, or a different grading company, or maybe it's SGC. What motivates you to grade with other companies that aren't PSA? And then, number two, are you looking for those types of value opportunities with cards in different slabs? And when you get those, what motivates you to keep a card in an existing slab, or what motivates you to crack it out and try to put it into a PSA slab or a different slab? Would just be curious to hear your thoughts. Does it have something to do with consistency in your collection? Does it have something to do if you're buying that card to sell it one day, you'd rather it be in a PSA slab, for example? So drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear thoughts from the community and things like that. So DPZ, great. I think we're at about 30 minutes. Let's wrap it up.
We are. Let's wrap it up. Yeah, let us know what you think. I know I for one, I know I rambled quite a bit today. So forgive me for my rambling and going all over the place. But yeah, let us know what you think of what we're thinking. I mean, this is what we're thinking this week. What are you thinking this week? That's why we have a weekly show, because it's fun. We can change our minds every now and then, right? We have a license to do that, and so do you. Let us know what you think. Are we crazy? Are we on point here? I know we're going to get a comment from Pick Six Cards. He's going to say this is his favorite show. Thank you for saying that every single show and every single comment. Appreciate that, man. I always feel like you're just trying to remind us all the time that we stole your name. I guess we did. Actually, Drake did. I didn't come up with the name. I'm blaming Drake. Anyway, thank you for letting us borrow your name, I suppose. The proper shout out for that gentleman that we probably haven't given, and we're now finally giving him his due. But thank you for all the comments you guys give us. We love going back and forth, love the engagement, and happy to be back, Drake. Let's do it again next week, right? What do you think?
Absolutely. We'll be right here.
Sounds good, buddy. All right, everybody, take care. Have a great weekend.